So my name is Paula Golden, and these stories that I'm going to tell is something that I experienced as a young girl. Well, I was born in November of '32, and the war broke out. Poland was occupied in '39. So you can figure out I was not quite 7 years old when this happened. So we stayed in Slovakia. I had an aunt. My father's sister lived in Switzerland, and when the lives of the Jews also became in danger in Slovakia, because eventually Slovakia got also occupied by the Germans. But Slovakia, because it had a president who collaborated with the Germans didn't destroy it. It's the way they handled Poland, the way they handled Bohemia, for instance. And I mean, it's interesting that the president of Slovakia was a priest, and I believe that he collaborated with the Germans so that he could save the country from the kind of destruction that he saw happening all around him. So anyway, my aunt approached a priest, a Catholic priest in Switzerland, and told him the story of her brother and his wife and his 3 daughters, and that she wanted him to create fake papers for us that we were all baptized Catholics. So our first papers actually were smuggled through somebody who delivered them to my father in Slovakia, but they came from Switzerland. But then the Germans changed the law, said if you just were baptized yourself, that was no good. And you had to be, if you were of Jewish origins, you had to be a Christian for, I'm not sure, 3 to 5 generations before yourself, okay? So those papers all of a sudden were no good. So my father, who at this point, my father and also my grandfather, they had friends regardless of what religious affiliation they were, which is kind of interesting because I don't think this was sort of the run-of-the-mill way of social relationships in those days. But there were people in Slovakia who agreed to save our lives if we truly would get baptized. And so my father held a meeting, a family meeting. So we were sitting at the table, my 2 sisters, one older, one younger than me, my mom and my dad. And my father told us that he and mom could not allow themselves to be baptized, but they would allow these good people to baptize us just to save our lives. And so we were baptized. And then we were put in a convent, which was a convent school. It had a school, it was a convent, and it was in a city called Prešov. Prešov is in northeast Slovakia. And so we stayed there for a couple of years. Maybe not quite a couple of years, maybe more like a year and a half. And then my father had this great idea that maybe he can take us all someplace where there is an ocean, I guess the Atlantic Ocean, and find a boat that we could get on and go to England. So to start the journey toward an ocean, he got us papers to go from Slovakia to Hungary. I mean, I don't know if you have a map in your mind, but Hungary is to the south of Slovakia, so it's away from the mountains.
It has a pool.
It's already towards the ocean. So we get into Hungary, And we stayed there for several weeks because my father is trying to figure out where to get a boat, how to get us out of there, and how to use his boat to take us to England. And that took several weeks already, and that's when this event happened. We were staying at a family who was keeping us, and so I'm in this bedroom, and I'm asleep. And all of a sudden, I wake up, and I woke up, and I was aware that I was in a state of incredible stillness. The easiest way for me to describe that state is that it was like I wasn't even breathing, but of course I knew I must be breathing because I was alive. But I was in such a state of stillness that I was not even aware that I was taking a breath in and out. It's hard to describe if you've never experienced it. But it's just, that's perhaps the best description. It's a state of utter stillness. And as I'm awake like that, so here is my bed, say, and I'm looking at the wall in front of me, and I notice that something is going on right at the wall. It was almost like the air was moving and transforming itself into a human being, and who eventually stood in front of me, but at the wall, was the Virgin Mary. I mean, I recognized her because in the pictures in the convent, she was always dressed in this way. And she was just standing there, just lovingly telling me, look at your knuckles, look at your knuckles. And she showed me what she meant. She made her hands to look like this. Look at your knuckles. So I looked at my knuckles, and the skin on my knuckles looked like it had been split, you know, like cut through, and pulled away from the bones. But there was no blood, there was no pain, and I wasn't even, somehow I wasn't even afraid. Okay? So I was looking at my knuckles. And my knuckles were as white as a white sheet. Totally white. And Mary says, look at your knuckles. I am telling you the bare bone truth. And so I figured she wanted me to look at my knuckles to see what kind of bare bones she was. What does it mean to tell a bare bone truth? There is nothing covering that up. It's bare bone truth. And she says to me, you must tell your Papa tomorrow morning. You must tell your Papa the Germans will occupy Hungary in 4 days. And then that was it. And then that being that stood in front of me started losing its body structure and became like air again and disappeared. I don't know, through the wall, into the wall, I don't know. But she disappeared. And then as I lay there in the bed, I said to myself, there is no way I can tell my Papa that the Virgin Mary appeared to me, because my Papa will believe that I betrayed our religion. And I thought that it would be better if we all perished, rather than my father believing that I betrayed our religion. So the next morning, I didn't tell him anything. Guess what happened? 4 days later, the Germans Hungary.